Hi there and welcome. It's Jennifer and I am so glad you're here. So today's video is a little bit different for me. I usually have a technique where I do multiple cards to demonstrate or teach that technique. But today I just have 5 cards for you, all that demonstrate different techniques. The reason is these cards were created this weekend when I was doing a little bit of crafting therapy. Crafting therapy is what I call it when I go to my craft room to kind of escape some stress or maybe process some thoughts of what's happening in my world or in my little head. And I think a lot of us do that. You know, card making is a very simple hobby, right? But there is a lot of good that can come out of it. So I am going to show you how to do some fun techniques today, but also give some tips how to best make use of your crafting time to deal with some of the things that might be tossing around in your head or some of the burdens that we carry on our shoulders because of all that's going on in this world. Now, I'm terrible with words. I'm going to warn you of that right now. Not great with words, but please know that I'm just trying to share some of the things that work for me in hopes that it helps you too. I'm using some new products from Pinkfresh Studio. I actually started a video with these products a couple weeks ago, but never finished it and decided to stop and change gears and create this video. So here I'm just demonstrating how this amazing background die works. I love it because it doesn't cut the outside edge, so you can make your cardstock whatever size you want, or even use this die on the front of a note card, which I'll demonstrate later in this video. But here I'm just cutting a piece of cardstock so you can see what it looks like. Now, I am doing all yellow and blue today. After all the news of what's happening in the Ukraine, I was struggling. I'm worried about my friend Yana, and I'm worried about what's going to happen. So I decided to go to my craft room and do a little of what I call crafting therapy and just kind of think through the things and also create these cheerful cards in hopes that it adds a little bit of light to the darkness we're feeling. Well, here I'm showing how you can use the same die to make an impression. Most die cut machines come with a flexible mat like the tan one you see here. And when you use that with your cardstock and die, it makes an impression instead of cutting, which is a great way to get a different look. So I'll show you a comparison between when the die was used to cut and here where the die was used to make an impression. I love this impression. It creates kind of this pillowy look that is so cool. I will be using the piece on the right where we made the impression and applying ink over it. Now, I've demonstrated this technique in the past. If you want to see a closer look at it, I will link to that video up here on the top right. But basically, I'm applying ink over the raised areas of that piece we did the impression using dye ink and a brayer. I will first put down a light blue over the whole thing, and then I will add darker towards the bottom to create kind of an ombre look. Okay, let's go back to talking about crafting therapy. I'm going to jump around here. Now, I've never talked about this before. I've told you all that I struggle with depression and anxiety sometimes. And back when Lila was born, I got hit terrible with postpartum depression. It was horrendous. And I really struggled to kind of get through the day a lot. So I went to therapy, and my therapist recommended doing 2 things every day that are really for me. One of them he recommended doing was taking the baby to like Starbucks and just getting a coffee for myself. He also recommended that I make time to craft. Now, it's my job too, but he knew that my work, my crafting, really makes me feel better. So he knew that if I could make time to do that, I would find my way through all this. So I started to head back to the craft room, and I would get very discouraged and overwhelmed when doing so because I was trying to come up with new techniques like I usually do and try to really think through about how to best make videos, and it just overwhelmed me and I would end up leaving. So I went back to my therapist, and he said, how about making 2 lists of the type of crafting you do? One list would be of things that are tried and true and comfortable to you. And one list would be things that you really want to try that are challenging, and you save those for when you're feeling creative. Okay, let's pause the story and just talk about the card real quick. You can see the inking that landed on the raised areas of our background. Remember, there's an impression there, so there's lots of texture. It's just kind of hard to see in the video. The heart in the center, that layered die cut heart, is using a birch press die set that is older. I love to take new products like these Pinkfresh ones and then use them together with older product so I can get use out of both. That's also something that really makes me happy in the craft room. So there's our first technique. That's a background die technique. Actually, all of the cards today are background die techniques. On this one, I'm doing Faux Die Cut Inlay. So I love to do die cut inlay, where I would die cut this and then pop all those little negative pieces inside of those flowers back into place in different colors. But it takes a long time. So I'm going to show you a trick here, and then I'll get back to my crafting therapy story. Okay, so here I just have this Pinkfresh background die, and I am taping cardstock to it, and I will run it through my die cut machine with the embossing mat. So again, this will make an impression instead of cutting. Most die cut machines come with an embossing mat, so just check the manual of your die cut machine. And I did that with the bright yellow and the darker blue. Then I used the same die to cut from a light blue, which you see on my desk there. Now from the impressed pieces, I am cutting out the little flowers. Now I'm not cutting out perfect, just jagged little flower there. And I'm flipping over my die cut, putting glue around one of the flowers, lining up this flower with that little opening, and it kind of pops in place. So the raised areas of that yellow flower, because we did the impression, kind of fit into the die cut holes on our background. So it almost looks like you did die cut inlay, but you didn't. So I'm going to continue this, adding yellow behind some of the flowers, and then we'll put the whole thing on that impressed blue background that you see up there on the top. Okay, so back to my story. So my therapist recommended writing those two lists. One of them was things I like to do in my craft room that are very comfortable for me. And the other are things that I really want to try that are a little more creatively challenging. And this sounds very simple, but when you're in the thick of some hard times and you don't have much time to get to your craft room, it's nice to be able to get there, have something kind of on your list that you can just quickly refer to and start creating. It seems silly, but I promise it really helped me out quite a bit. So in this case, I was learning about everything happening in the Ukraine, talking to my friend Yana, who is there, and I'm just so concerned about her and everyone. And I tend to overthink things, and things weigh on me heavy. So I decided, while my daughter was at a play date and my son was at a driving lesson, to go to my craft room and spend some time creating and doing something that would be comfortable to me so I could feel a little calm, and also something that would help me try to honor those folks who are affected by everything. So I chose to do yellow and blue for Ukraine, and it was so fun to do that color combination. I'll post these on social media and pray that they add a little bit of light to the darkness, maybe make somebody smile. I don't think I'll be able to mail these cards to anyone in the Ukraine. However, I can give these cards to somebody in my own little world, and it will give them some love and encouragement and some kindness. And I think any kind of kindness and encouragement that you can put out there helps everyone. So that's kind of the superpower that we have with card making, is that we can make people feel better. We can encourage, we can brighten a day, and that's what I'm hoping here. So I went to my craft room with all the stuff and I created, and it felt so good. It felt kind of like a little therapy session for myself. So I chose on all of these cards techniques that I enjoy and things that I've done before that I feel comfortable doing. Things I know I enjoy. So I like to do die cutting, and I like to create fun backgrounds and add a simple element on top. So here in all of these cards, I'm doing a background die cut technique and then adding something on top of it, like a focal point. So this allows me to create in a very easy way and kind of get a little escape from everything that's going on and kind of process things. So then I have my other list, which are things that I really want to do that I think might be a little more challenging creatively. And I save those for times where I'm feeling a little more creative, where I can put a little more thought into it. Now, for some people, those creative challenges are therapeutic. So go for that if that works for you. Okay, back to the card. Here is the completed card. It's 4¼ by 5½ inches. You can see that faux die cut inlay technique on the background. It looks like I inlaid all those yellow pieces, but I just did that trick of making the impression so that the little petals would kind of fit in that die cut we put on top. So this is a really fun technique to do with any background die you may have. Okay, this next card, I show a way to add a ton of texture to your background using a background die. But first, I'm going to start by creating that little branch and the butterflies. Now for this, I'm using some new Pinkfresh products. There is this background stamp where all the stamps come out, so you can stamp them separately where you want. Or you can leave them all in the negative space of the stamp them all at once, and then you can use the coordinating die to cut them out at once. You can also use the coordinating stencil to color them all at once. And that's what I'll be doing here for this card. Okay, so I started by gold heat embossing all of that image, and then we will add the coloring using the stencil, some dye ink, and some inking tools. Okay, so back to the two lists. We have the list of things that are comfortable for crafting and the list of things that we want to try that are a little more challenging creatively. Now, I recommend trying this. I really found it to be helpful for me. It's very obvious, but having it written down, you could even do sketches or other notes on your list. I found it helpful. Another thing that I think you could do is if you watch a lot of videos, card making videos, or look at card making blogs online, I recommend bookmarking what you see that you want to try into 2 different lists. So maybe you see a card and you're like, oh, that looks like something I can do and it would be really enjoyable. So put it on that comfortable list. If you see something new to you that you think might be a little challenging, but a fun kind of creative challenge, put it on the other list. That way, when you have some time to craft in your craft room, you can check out the 2 lists. If you need something kind of calming and easy, then go to that comfort list. If you are ready for something more challenging and creative, go to the creative challenge list. It's a really simple thing that you can do to make your hobby even more enjoyable. My husband said he actually did this kind of stuff too when he used to build planes. He did remote control airplanes for many years. He would have like some really easy tasks that he enjoyed doing that he would do when he had just a little bit of time and just wanted to kind of get an escape. And then he would save the more challenging things for times where he felt up to it. So it's all about making use of your time and your passion. Okay, so let's talk about the technique here. Now with this one, I thought it'd be fun to cut with this background die and then offset it and make an impression with it. So not only will we have little holes, but we will have little raised areas too. So I'm first running it through my die cut machine as you normally would to cut the pattern. Now I'll pop out all those little holes a little bit later. But next I am taking the same die and the same cardstock and offsetting it. So you can see how I've offset the pattern. I'll tape that in place. Then I will run it through my die cut machine to make an impression. So I'll use that tan embossing mat. So this will give me a lot of texture, change up the look of this background die, and just give me a fun way, easy way to create a unique background. So here is what it looks like. Isn't that cool where you have the raised areas and the holes? It really steps it up. So now I will just assemble the card using all the different pieces that I have here. Okay, so back to the list. I think that tried and true or comfortable list of things like you like to do when creating is really important. For some people, it's coloring. My friend Kathy Rakusin, I mean, she is the happiest person in the world when she's coloring. It makes her so happy. So when things are tough, she can go do that and it'll make her feel good. She can go pick out a favorite product, do some stamping, and then go to town coloring. For me, coloring is very stressful. It's not something that I do for fun. It's something that I do to complete a card. And that's okay. Everybody is different. And that's why it's important, especially if you're seeing a lot of cards other people make, to figure out what works for you. Okay, back to the card. We just need a sentiment, and I like the just a note here in the middle of this. Now, the cool thing about this stamp set is you stamp all of those sentiments at once, and then you can use the coordinating die to cut them all out at once, and you have lots of sentiments left over. You can see there's also a hot foil plate option if you prefer. I do recommend products like this that allow you to create a lot of pieces at once very easily, because you can save those pieces in your extras area, your drawer or binder, and quickly grab those when you're just looking for some easy crafting to do. So this is one I've used many, many times in videos, and I just like the sentiments in it. And I think they have 3 different versions of this now, so you can check those out if you're interested. Okay, so after I glued everything onto my card, we have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. I did add some little blue gemstones to the center of the pattern on the background just to catch the light and add some sparkle. So you can see how my energy and my joy on this card came from doing that background. That's what I like to do the most. And then I did quick coloring, because coloring with markers stresses me out, by using the coordinating stencils. Okay, my next card shows another background die technique to create that fun background that you see there. And I did another thing that I really like to do when I craft, and that is to make a card with somebody in mind. I thought my friend Jeff would really like this background. It's his colors and kind of his jam. So I decided to create this thinking of him, which always makes crafting easier, to think of the person you're giving it to. Now there are coordinating stencils, a hot foil plate, and a die that all go together. And I'm going to use all 3 this time. I'm starting with the hot foil plate, and I have that on my Spellbinders Glimmer machine. You could use any foil machine that works with whatever die cut machine you have. I put the foil plate on my hot machine, laid the foil on top, then a piece of smooth white cardstock, the 2 shims that come with the machine, and then I press the button. When the button stops flashing, I can take the platform and the shims and take that out and put it through my platinum die cut machine. So the Glimmer machine provides the heat, the die cut machine provides the pressure. If you want to see more about this technique of doing foiling, I'll link to a how-to video up here on the top right. I'm just showing it quickly today. And there we have that beautiful background created with a shiny blue foil. Next, I'll line up each of the coordinating stencils one at a time and add different shades of blue ink over it. Now, these stencils could be used alone. You can use a hot foil plate alone, and you can use a background die alone. But I decided to use all 3 together to create a really elaborate background. Okay, I have another thought about crafting therapy. I've talked about this in the past, and I just thought I'd mention it again. Our crafting is supposed to be a stress reliever. It's supposed to bring us happiness and make us feel good, right? If you are finding that you are stressed out by things when you're crafting, I'm hoping that you'll step back and kind of think about why. I've heard a lot lately that folks are overwhelmed by their crafting. Oftentimes because there's so many products that they are interested or so many things they want to try. I recommend really focusing on what you enjoy most. Don't get caught up on what everybody else is doing. Just because you see a lot of people doing foiling, it doesn't mean that you have to do it if you have no interest in adding that shine to your card. Just because you see people using Copic markers doesn't mean that you need to do it if you don't have the time to or don't have the interest in going through the process of learning how. So just step back and think about what makes you happy, what makes you calm when crafting, and focus on that. By folks like me who do videos using new products and show you new ways to use products you have, we're trying to help and show you a lot of things that you can try. But there is absolutely nobody who can try them all, right? So just focus on what you think will bring you happiness and do your thing. Do whatever makes you happy. Okay, back to the card. After I inked in all of the blue foil, I used the coordinating die to cut from gold, and I glued it onto the background, but I offset it just to make the background a little more elaborate and add more detail to it. And it just creates a new look. And now I'm adding kind of a band right across the center, and then adding a heart with a sentiment on it. That's my go-to. I like to create an elaborate background and then put a focal point, often a heart die cut, onto that background with a sentiment. Now the sentiment that I'm using is from this large new Pinkfresh stamp set. There is a coordinating die set and coordinating stencils to color the flower, but I just chose a sentiment from this. And by the way, if you're looking for really unique and thoughtful sentiments, I encourage you to check out Pinkfresh Studio's stamps. They have some really wonderful sentiments in all of their different stamp sets. I think it's really important to check out the sentiments when considering a stamp set anyways. Now for the Thanks die cut, I used some foil paper from Memory Box so that the blue foil sentiment will match the foil that we did on our background. I also added some gold pearls to the background pattern for a little bit of added dimension. So for me, this was a fun card. I did a lot of my favorites. I did die cutting, I did foiling, and I did inking. And I used a basic card design where I let the background shine. So for me, this is definitely on my comfort list of techniques to do. Okay, here is our final card, and this one has a die cut see-through card front. So you can actually see through to the inside of the card, which I think is always a great way to create a unique look. Now I'm going to start out with the focal points on it. We have this Songbirds on a branch set. These are all sold separately. You have the stamp, the hot foil plate, the coordinating die, and the stencils that once again all coordinate together, making it really easy to pick and choose what you like and also use them creatively. I chose to use the hot foil plate, so I have that on my warm glimmer machine. I put gold foil on top of it, then my cardstock and the two shims or plates that come with the machine. Push the timer button. When it's done, I can take that all out and run it through my die cut machine. And we end up with this beautiful foil background. And then, once again, I'm using those stencils to add the inky color. While I do that, I wanted to mention one more thing of using crafting as therapy. I think this is something that we sometimes forget as card makers. First of all, our hobby, we do because it makes us happy. Creating these cards makes us happy. It is our joy, our passion, right? Well, there is a second aspect to our hobby that not all hobbies have, and that is that we can get the joy of giving too. So we get the joy of creating, and we can get the joy of giving. I find the best part of making a card is giving it to someone. I know a lot of us like to keep our cards because we create them and we kind of want to hang on to them, right? But I recommend giving your cards. You can always take a photo of the card that you can keep and refer to make another later. You can always make two of the same card, keep one and send another. But I really believe that the best part of our hobby is that kindness of giving the card. And I find that there is therapy in doing that. It makes you feel really good. And it really is putting some goodness out into the world. So I just want to remind you to mail those cards. If you don't want to mail them, hand them to somebody. It doesn't have to be somebody you know. You can give it to nurses at the local hospital. You can give it to the mailman, anybody. Or just give it to somebody you haven't talked to in a while or somebody in your life who could use some encouragement. I really feel like the more we put out there that is good, the better the world will be at the end of the day. So it's just doing our little part when we often feel pretty helpless. Okay, so now for the background, let's do that die cut see-through card. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding white note card. And this Pinkfresh die is awesome because it doesn't cut that outside edge. It only cuts those holes in the middle. So I can put this on the front of our card and it'll create the holes, but we will have a full card panel, which I think is great. So we have this top folding note card with the see-through holes on the front. Now onto this, I added some circle die cuts that will be kind of the focal point where we can rest our birds and branches. Now I chose very soft colors for the birds and branches. And so by doing this little light blue focal point behind it, it keeps it from getting washed out against the busy background. So I glued a blue circle on the front, then I flipped it over and glued a white circle on the back. That way it'll look nice from the inside of the card also. Now I'm gluing all the pieces onto the front of the card, and off screen I did create a 5 1/4 by 4 inch side folding light blue card, and I glued that inside of this one. That way I would have a hidden spot inside to write my personal message. Now you could totally skip that if you wanted to and just write your personal message in that little area on the bottom, and it would be blocked by the circle, but I like having that card on the inside too. So here's a closer look at the front. I added a few pearls here and there, and then I did my sentiment in blue ink. I felt like black might be a little bit too dark because I used such soft colors. So the darker blue I felt was a better fit. You can see through all of those little holes, which I think is really fun, and it allows that light blue on the inside to show through. Before we go, I did want to mention that I plan to auction off the cards I made in this video over in my Facebook group. It's the Share Handmade Kindness Facebook group, and I'll put a link in the description down below. I'll probably do it in a couple weeks in hopes to raise money to help with the crisis in Ukraine. I will also link to a current card auction that folks are doing over on Instagram to help raise money for the crisis also. And everyone can join in by creating any cards you want inspired by the brave folks over in the Ukraine, and just put hashtag cards for Ukraine. If you check out that hashtag like on Instagram, there are so many beautiful blue and yellow cards. It is just, it's amazing to see. I do know that there are many things going on in this world that weigh heavy, and I hope that whatever you're feeling, that you take care of yourself, take care of each other, and find a little time to create. Thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you soon.